Hey guys, broadcasting to you live from Thanksgiving break. So I'm sure we're all, well, I know by the time you watch this, Thanksgiving break will have been over. So um, just keep your eye on the prize, which is Christmas break. But much needed Thanksgiving break, and yet here I am still talking about AP World History. And no, I know none of you are surprised by that. But today we're going to do a short lesson. My goal for today's class is actually to be working on the DBQ, but I do need to give you some content. So what we're going to do today is we're going to pick up from where we left off, which was the Industrial Revolution. And we are going to talk about those ideologies that emerge from the Industrial Revolution, including the first one, capitalism. So that's what this picture is. It's not just some weird thing I found on the internet. This is a sort of cartoon on why capitalism is sort of bad. But today's sort of our pro-capitalism day. So we're going to talk about why capitalism is a good thing today, okay? Don't worry, we will have a day when we talk about how bad capitalism is. We'll also talk about communism and a little bit of socialism and all of those ideologies that emerge from the inner workings of the Industrial Revolution. So let's start. Yeah, guys, as you can see, we are still in period 3, still in unit 5. As usual, attendance, memes of the day, shorter lesson on capitalism, and we're going to spend the most of our day actually talking about how to write a DBQ, because you have a DBQ coming up, your first one, which I know you are all so incredibly excited about, and I say that very sarcastically, but y'all will be fine, okay? So, a couple memes for you. Bad luck, Brian. Heck yeah. We'll get some more child labor and all the fun stuff of the Industrial Revolution, but I do like this one. Okay, guys, so you probably don't have to write this down. This is just building upon what we've already talked about. So as a quick reminder, guys, so I went over the Industrial Revolution with my blue day before Thanksgiving break. And so Orange Day is going to be right after. So some of this stuff should seem very familiar to you. If not, you might want to go back in your notes and read it. So the Industrial Revolution, in short, the key thing you need to know is that it's going to change how things are going to be made. So remember, in period 1, we had those sort of cottage industries where men and women are sitting around slowly kind of sewing clothes and taking long periods of time to complete those tasks. In period 3, the Industrial Revolution changes that. All of a sudden, you're going to have centralized labor. So lots of people working in one particular area, which we all know is a factory. And they're going to be using machines to mass produce goods. So it's going to go from those, husband and wife tag team making one dress over the course of like 2 months to mass production of clothing, textiles, and luxury goods in factories quickly. Okay. So remember, guys, the other thing that's pretty different in this time period is where things are made. So again, in period 1, you're seeing the production of luxury goods in China and India, pretty much all of East Asia. The Silk Road is where you're getting your goods on the top of camels and sending it across the world to trade. But that's going to change in period 3, okay? In period 3, all of these luxury goods, all of these goods in general, luxury or not, are going to mostly be made in Europe as well as in the United States, okay? So major change on where the places of where these things are going to be made, okay? Now, the places that industrialized first, so Great Britain, the United States, okay, the Netherlands, France, they're going to have more resources, okay? Because the ability to build up those factories, the ability to mass produce goods means you can make stuff quicker, right? You eventually will have more resources, and that's also going to mean you're going to have more power, okay? Now, this is critical as we move forward because these places that industrialize first are going to be very powerful. And the way they approach the rest of the world and how they treat the rest of the world will be seen through the lenses of how powerful they are, okay? So that's sort of our refresher on the Industrial Revolution. Now let's talk about capitalism. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about capitalism and we're going to talk a lot about communism, both ideologies. Pretty much every class from here on out until the end of the year is going to rely on these ideologies. You're going to constantly see these two theories of economics competing with each other, okay, all the way until 2020. All right, you turn on the news today and you still see people talking about communism and socialism and capitalism, okay? But we need to take a step back, and we need to understand where capitalism comes from, all right? So today, as I said, is sort of our rah-rah capitalism. It's great, it's amazing, it's wonderful. Again, you will get a lesson about why capitalism is maybe not super wonderful. And we'll also talk about communism. We'll talk about the pros and cons of that as well, okay? So economic and government ideologies, beginning with capitalism, here we go. What is capitalism, okay? It's an economic and a political system, okay? The United States, our political system is based on capitalism. Essentially, a country's trade and industry are going to be controlled by private owners. So let's think about it. Today in the United States, some of our biggest companies, Apple, okay, Amazon, trying to think of some more, Microsoft, all of these companies are owned by private hands. Okay, they're owned by private people, private stockholders, private individuals. You know who doesn't own them? The government. Okay, the government does not make any money off of Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, because the government does not own these companies. They are owned by private owners. And these private owners are interested in one thing and one thing only, and that is this right here, profit, okay? Jeff Bezos is not interested in making your life easier with his Amazon Prime shipping. He's interested in making money. Okay, the same goes with Apple, the same with Microsoft, Tesla, all those big companies. That means, and as I said, guys, that means that the state is not going to be the owner of these private companies. They will be run by private people. All right. And the opposite of capitalism essentially is when these industries, these major corporations are owned by the government. Okay, that'll be communism, but we'll get there. So let's think about the economic developments and innovations in period 3. So again, we're kind of building on our lesson from the Industrial Revolution. So you guys probably remember before the Thanksgiving break when we talked about the revolutions in Latin America. And I said that one of the major causes of these revolutions was mercantilism. Well, turns out mercantilism is actually a bad thing. So who would have thought it, right? But this guy right here, and we're going to talk about him in just a second, Adam Smith, a British economist, he is going to basically kill mercantilism all himself, okay? And so we're going to see in the economic developments in period 3, we're going to see mercantilism come to a fiery crashing end, okay? So period 2, the economic systems were based on mercantilism. In period 3, we're going to get rid of mercantilism and we're going to replace it called something, we're going to replace it with something called free trade, in which governments can freely trade with each other, okay, and gain profit without government regulations, okay? So remember, in period 2, the 13 colonies were required to send all of their raw materials to Great Britain, okay? Great Britain would return it and sell it back for a higher price. We're getting rid of that. Instead, free trade means that, you know, countries can compete with each other in an effort to have lower prices, okay? Other economic developments and innovations from period 3. So a lot of these maritime-based empires, which we've been talking about over and over again, are going to adopt Adam Smith's theories of capitalism. So on that last page, this nice little definition about capitalism is going to be created by this guy, Adam Smith. And much of the European countries will adopt capitalism as their main economic and political system, okay? Global trade is going to continue, and in fact, it's going to grow. So trade is pretty much a major theme of AP World History. The Silk Road, the Indian Ocean trading route, okay, mercantilism. In period 3, amazingly, trade is going to get bigger, okay, and that's going to be based on this new concept of free trade. So all these new countries are going to be competing with each other, lowering prices, making prices higher, okay, and that will grow in period 3. But in order to really have a successful ability to trade, what you'll see is that it's really just these maritime-based empires. So tiny little countries in Africa don't have the opportunity to really trade as much as these maritime-based empires. Okay, so Great Britain, France, United States, they're going to have access to resources and goods, and that's going to be stuff that will be traded on the free market. All right, so that's kind of your background information on where we're going with this capitalism thing, okay? So let's talk a little bit more about this, all right? In period 3, you're also going to have the development of something called transnational businesses. So at the end of class today, I'm going to only teach you about one, but essentially a transnational business is a business that that operates in many different countries. So pretty much all of our big businesses today are transnational. Okay, you'll see Amazon operating in Europe. You'll see Tesla operating in China. You'll see Apple operating in China. So all these major businesses are going to kind of not just operate in one place. It'll be around the world in order to make higher profits. Okay, your main goal is to make profits, right? You want to make money. That's what capitalism is all about. Okay, and so one way you'll do that is to take your company, which maybe you create in the United States, and to send it abroad so that you have more access to people, more access to bigger market shares, okay? These large transnational businesses are also going to rely on new banking practices. We'll talk about that later. So what does this all lead to? Well, it leads to an increased standard of living. So more profit, more money. And when you have more money, you have more people able to buy nice goods, right? You have more people able to buy things to fill out their houses, to go on vacations. Okay, you're gonna see that you're gonna have a creation of something called a middle class. And so up until this point in history, you don't really see much of a middle class. We said that there was a middle class in the 13 colonies, and that's true. But think about the social hierarchies of Europe and Asia. Right, when you had sort of lords and people at the top, and then you have lower serfs and peasants at the bottom. Okay, capitalism and the economic developments of period 3 are going to create a new class of people in the middle, and these people are going to be able to afford nice goods. Okay, they're going to be working hard, and they're going to be able to afford nice goods, and they're going to be able to rise above that sort of peasant and serf class that you see so often in other situations. You're also going to see an improvement in manufacturing. So remember, all of those factories that are being created in London, Manchester, across the United States, Lowell, Massachusetts, Columbus, Georgia, all of this is going to be this is going to lead to more items, more goods that are going to be brought to market and sold. It's also going to mean that more of this stuff is made efficiently. So textiles are going to be created as cheap as possible in the American South and sold all around the world, okay? Profits are going to be made. You're also going to see an increased availability of goods. So again, now that things are being made a lot quicker in mass production in factories all around the world, there's going to be an availability of textiles, luxury goods, porcelain, silks. It's no longer just going to come out of China. You'll see silk weavers in London, all right? You'll see porcelain being manufactured in other places. On top of that, you'll see new tools, goods that you didn't see in period 1 and period 2. Okay, all of this new technology, all of these new consumer goods, and it's going to create, for the first time ever, a culture of consumerism. Okay, so people are going to be able to buy things. People are going to want things. Okay, you didn't really see in period 1, besides the occasional European who wanted some silk or porcelain. Now, people want things. They want new clothes. They want tools for their farms. Okay, they want things for their houses. So this culture of consumerism is going to get bigger as we go on into period 3 and eventually into period 4. So let's talk about this guy right here in this phenomenal wig, a dude named Adam Smith. Okay, so Adam Smith is famous for a lot of things, but what you need to know is that he's actually called the father of capitalism. All right, so he's actually the father of this economic theory called capitalism. So amazingly, no one was really trying to figure out prior to the 1770s how people make money or how governments make profits, okay, until Adam Smith. So in a lot of ways, this guy's a game changer. So he's an Enlightenment thinker as well. So he's influenced by, all those white dudes in coffee shops talking about natural rights. Basically, in 1776, okay, keep that year in mind because I know you know something else that's happening at that year. He's going to write a book called The Wealth of Nations. And in that book, he is trying to figure out how to maximize profit, which again, no one had done up to this point. Okay. And what he does is he basically says that mercantilism is garbage. Okay. It's great that we can take all these natural resources from our colonies, but it's not good for us and it's not good for them. What he argues for is a hands-off approach from the government. So essentially, the British government should not interfere with private industry. The British government should not come in and say, build that factory or produce, 1 million pounds of, clothes for this market. The government should sit back and just let it happen, okay? The market will decide what is good and what is bad. So essentially, it's going to be the people whose wants are going to dictate what is made and for how much money it can be sold for. Okay. He comes up with this idea called laissez-faire, which is French for leave it alone. So again, the government needs to just leave the economy alone. The government should sit back and let whatever happen. Okay. And that again means that the government doesn't come in. It doesn't regulate anything. It doesn't regulate child labor. It doesn't regulate, factories forcing employees to work for 24 hours because the market says that you can do that. Okay. He also calls this idea of laissez-faire the invisible hand. And what the invisible hand refers to is the invisible hand of the market. Okay. It shouldn't be the government who says what to do or what to produce. It should be this sort of invisible hand of supply and demand. Okay. So again, Adam Smith's capitalism ideas are actually going to be adopted worldwide. Okay. All of those maritime-based empires are going to adopt this idea of capitalism. Okay. And as I said, guys, he argues that mercantilism is a terrible mistake. And amazingly, he writes this book in 1776. So if he had written this book 10 years earlier and the British government had listened and stopped the mercantilism thing in the United States, there's a really good chance that the 13 colonies would never have rebelled. Because remember, mercantilism was a major cause of the American Revolution. And Adam Smith knew that it was a problem. Okay. Now, let me give you an example of capitalism. Okay. And how this sort of invisible hand works. Okay, so I want you to think about Columbus for a minute. All right, I want you to think about your home. Now, just imagine that there was no pizza place in Columbus. Okay, and everybody loves pizza, but there is absolutely no good places to get pizza. All right. So Adam Smith would say, no, the government should not get involved. The government should not force a Domino's to come in and open up. All right. Instead, people should sit around and say, you know what would be great in Columbus? A pizza place. You know what? I think I'm going to open a pizza place. It's not the government that decides that, it's the people. Okay, that idea of that invisible hand, people coming together and deciding we need to open up a pizza joint here, okay, and opening up a Domino's or a Papa John's, okay, or a Little Caesars or whatever. But what happens if that pizza is not very good? Okay, well, Adam Smith would say if the pizza is not very good, the economy will decide that it's not, or the invisible hand will decide it's not very good, and people will not go to this pizza place. They will not spend money there. Okay. So the invisible hand is always working to sort of create this economy, right? Now, capitalism also means that you can have a pizza place like Little Caesars and you can go and buy a pizza for $5. And it also says that you can have a place, what's that place in the north side of town, the Chicago place, where you spend a lot of extra money on really good pizza. Okay, it's all about demand. It's what people want. Okay, and if some people want to pay the $5 for a crappy thing of pizza, or they want to pay, $20 for a really good deep dish pizza, sure. Okay, if that's what the market dictates and people can afford it, people can make profit off of it, then that is a successful example of capitalism. And the government did not come in, and the government did not require anyone to open up a pizza place. People did it on their own, okay? The invisible hand created that. So guys, for the most part, Adam Smith was right, okay? But Adam Smith was right in terms of this sort of kind of sterile idea of economic growth. Okay. If you are looking at a measure of success based on people making profit, then yes, he's right. There is sort of an invisible hand. There is a market, supply and demand. Okay. But if you're looking at the other side of capitalism, if there is no child right, or if there is no government regulation, you have child labor. If there is no government regulation, you have women working in factories 24 hours a day, killing themselves. Okay. If there is no government regulation, you have factories who, will put lead paint in water for people to drink, or put horrible chemicals into the atmosphere because the government does not regulate them. So, in short, Adam Smith was right, but he was only right if you look at the purely sterile view that, profit and economic growth is a good thing. Okay. Without government regulation, Adam Smith was right. But as you can kind of see, there are some cons to capitalism. Without any sort of government regulation, what kind of stuff are these companies that are only interested in increasing and maximizing profit? What are they what's going to happen? Okay. And that's what I want you to think about, because in future lessons, we'll be looking at the cons of capitalism. So when you're relying on the theories of Adam Smith, when governments are looking constantly to acquire financial success, when they're constantly trying to increase their profit margins, and they're trying in order to, build up this idea of their economies, they're going to implement the theories of capitalism. Yes, they're going to implement Adam Smith's brilliant theories of profits, okay, and this invisible hand and this laissez-faire. And one way they're going to do it is through the creation of transnational companies. So if you think back to one of my first slides of today, these transnational companies are companies, of course, that are located in several different countries. So if you create a banking industry in London and you want to increase your profits, well, you take that company and you send a branch to New York, okay? Or you send a branch to California, all right, to Shanghai or Beijing. That's how you increase your profit margins, when you send your company to other places to open up new markets, okay? And that is what we're going to see these capitalistic countries, these capitalistic maritime-based empires doing. So I really only need to teach you about one of them. And so I wanted to teach you about this one called the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. So this banking corporation is not really well known here in the United States, but it is the 6th largest bank in the entire world. Okay, so this is a British transnational bank. So it's going to originate in London in the 1860s. Okay, now it's a bank, so they're going to be basically giving out money or giving out capital for factories to kind of expand, loans, mortgages, that kind of stuff. So basically, who's going to own HSBC? Well, it's going to be British elites. So it's not that different than a joint stock company. Okay, but this time it's going to be a joint stock company that has branches all over the world. Okay, so again, the HSBC is going to provide capital and support global trade. So you guys probably remember from our first lesson, capital is something that creates wealth. Okay, it's money. It's not always just money. Sometimes capital is also real estate. Okay, it's anything that helps someone create wealth. So the HSBC is going to help create wealth through providing capital. So it's going to provide capital to factory owners to create new factories in other places. All right, it's going to provide capital to people who are trying to buy real estate, right, and build large buildings on them. Okay. But the early HSBC is kind of interesting because while it is a reputable bank today, you might be wondering why a British company would be successful in China in period 3, especially because, as I told you, under the Qing dynasty in China, China was relatively isolated. So how does this British company come on in and just kind of become this major important corporation? And the answer is that the world's largest drug dealer is this company. And yes, you heard me correct. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. When we get back from Christmas, I will tell you all about how the British Empire got the Chinese people hopelessly addicted to opium through this company right here, the HSBC. And yes, today it is a reputable company, but originally it was a company that dealt drugs to the Chinese. And no, I'm not kidding, but that is what this transnational company was able to do. Again, in Britain, it provided capital to businesses and factories to create, further ways to create a profit. And the way that it became a transnational bank in China was through drug dealing. But again, getting ahead of myself, that is a great story, and we will get there. Okay, we will get there. I promise. All right, guys. So this is it for my sort of pros to capitalism. And I'm sure a lot of you think, yay, capitalism's awesome. And it is. The ability to make a profit is great. But again, as I've sort of alluded to already, there are a lot of cons to capitalism. And so in future lessons, we will be talking about that. Okay. So as I said, this is a short lesson. So if you miss class, please give me an email please send me an email because I do want to talk to you a little bit about my expectations for the DBQ this Thursday and Friday. So if you are on my Blue Day students, you will have your first DBQ in class on Thursday, December 3rd. And if you are my Orange Day kids, you have your DBQ on Friday, December 4th. Okay. So please shoot me an email if you're just watching this from somewhere else. And if not, I will see you guys later.